In the winter of 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out across a remote mountain range in the northern Ural Mountains. They were young, capable, and familiar with hardship. They carried proper equipment. They followed a planned route. Weeks later, rescuers would find their campsite abandoned, the tent sliced open from the inside, belongings left behind, footprints leading away into the snow. The place would come to be known as Dyatlov Pass, but the name came later. At the time, it was simply wilderness. The group was led by a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. He and his companions were members of a hiking club, certified for difficult winter expeditions. Such journeys were not unusual in the Soviet Union, where endurance and discipline were deeply valued. There were 10 hikers at the start. 1 turned back early due to illness. 9 continued into the mountains. Their destination lay far beyond settled areas, a high wind-scoured region where forests thin into bare slopes and the sky feels unusually close. The mountain they approached was called Kholat Syakhl, a name from the local Mansi language, sometimes translated as Dead Mountain. The journey progressed slowly but normally. Diary entries described deep snow, strong winds, and moments of humor. Photographs showed the hikers smiling, building fires, adjusting skis. Nothing suggested distress. On February 1st, they made camp on an exposed slope rather than descending into the shelter of the forest below. Why they chose this location remains uncertain. Perhaps darkness was falling. Perhaps they intended to practice cold weather camping. They pitched their tent on the incline, anchoring it against the wind. Inside, they arranged boots, coats, food, and equipment in careful order. A small stove was prepared for melting snow. At some point during the night, something happened. Investigators would later determine that the tent had been cut open from within, as if the occupants needed to leave quickly but could not use the entrance. The fabric had long slashes, not the tearing of wind, but deliberate knife marks. Outside, the temperature hovered far below freezing. Footprints led downhill toward the trees. 9 sets, some barefoot, some wearing only socks, others in a single boot. The tracks suggested walking, not running. No signs of struggle appeared around the tent. At the edge of the forest, rescuers later found the remains of a small fire beneath a cedar tree. Broken branches indicated that someone had climbed upward, perhaps to look back toward the campsite. 2 bodies lay nearby, dressed only in thin undergarments, as though they had left in haste. Farther into the woods, 3 more were discovered, positioned as if attempting to return to the tent. Snow had covered them where they fell. The remaining 4 were not found until spring, buried deep in a ravine under meters of compacted snow. Some of the injuries were severe. Fractured ribs, a crushed skull. Yet there were few external wounds, as if the force had come from something heavy but not sharp. Pressure rather than violence. Clothing from the dead had been removed and worn by others, suggesting a desperate effort to conserve warmth. 1 woman was missing her tongue. No clear explanation emerged. Officials concluded that the hikers died of hypothermia after being forced from their shelter by an unknown, compelling force. The phrase was vague, almost evasive. The case was closed. Files were archived. In the years that followed, speculation grew quietly. Avalanche, military testing, sudden panic in darkness, a natural event misunderstood in the moment. But the physical evidence never settled neatly into any single theory. The mountain remained empty. Snow fell. Wind erased the tracks that once led away from the tent. Today, the pass bears Dyatlov's name, a quiet memorial to a journey that never reached its end. Travelers who visit the area describe a stark landscape, long slopes, pale sky, silence broken only by the wind moving across the snow. It is not a place that feels hostile, only indifferent. The hikers were not lost wanderers. They were skilled, prepared, and accustomed to risk. Whatever happened unfolded quickly enough to drive them into lethal cold without boots, coats, or certainty of survival. In winter mountains, small decisions carry enormous weight. Distance becomes an illusion. Darkness arrives without warning. The body cools faster than the mind can accept. Perhaps they believed they would return within minutes. Perhaps they expected danger to pass as suddenly as it came. But the cold does not negotiate. It simply continues. By the time rescuers arrived weeks later, the camp had become a still life. Fabric stiff with frost, supplies untouched, the shape of human intention preserved, but empty. 9 people had been there. Now there was only evidence of absence. The official explanation remains unsatisfying not because it is dramatic, but because it is incomplete. It offers no moment of understanding, no clear turning point. Only the knowledge that something occurred which could not be reconstructed afterward. Mountains often keep such things. Snow buries detail. Wind reshapes surfaces. Time removes urgency from unanswered questions. What remains is a quiet image, a tent on a pale slope, cut open toward the night, and a line of footprints leading down into darkness where trees stand waiting below. No voices, no movement, only the long, patient cold of a winter that does not remember who passed through it. And somewhere beneath the drifting snow, the final moments of 9 travelers remain folded into the landscape. Not dramatic, not explained, simply unfinished.